Today we're doing things a little bit differently. Every day is different, of course. Why would today be any different? I just said it was different though, so what the heck does that even mean? We're going to do things a little different. I'm actually not seeing my face today, and that's going to be what today's theme is, the reason why. So, yesterday we talked about, oh, by the way, this is the 30-day challenge where we are challenged to speak for at least 60 seconds, and at least one of these days of this month, the next 30 days, I have to speak for a full hour and bore you to tears. But tears are good. Remember that they kind of moisturize your eyes and they keep you healthy. So today, it's day 9, and building off of some of yesterday's talk about the eyes, I got to thinking about this a little bit more and realized that I don't want to deal with being in front of a computer as often as I am. And I thought about it a lot yesterday, and I thought, well, what can I realistically do to change this? Set up some kind of a limit, perhaps, on the amount of screen time. And that's in fact what I did. It's not easy, and I don't know how long it's going to work. I'm going to try to keep myself as open-minded as I can to modify it. But basically it boils down to 3 hours of screen time per day, maximum. And this means all screens. Screens like the one I'm looking at right now, which I'm not. I've got the phone reversed. So I'm trying to save my screen time, see? I can't see whether I'm actually recording. I have to trust that the button I pressed in the front actually continued recording after I saw the seconds go down. So it should be alright, but I may not be framing correctly. I won't know if there's an error. The phone may stop recording because of some other mishap, and I won't get any of this footage. But it's all in an attempt to save screen time. So what else does screen time include? That includes, obviously, your mobile phone, obviously your desktop, obviously your laptop, but even TV and movie theaters, any screen whatsoever. And yesterday I talked about the problems I learned about eyesight. Not that I was completely oblivious to the fact that your eyes do degrade as you age, and they degrade even further when you're constantly staring at screens. I understood this internally, but after a conversation with my ex-bandmate Mike, learning about the problems he's had and how he's gone to the doctor and learned about the physical realities of why this happens. You blink less when you're focusing on screens, I said yesterday, and that means you stop producing your, I was going to say saliva, you don't salivate from your eyes, but you stop producing tears because your tear ducts eventually die when you don't blink enough. So you're going to see me doing a lot of this. But I started thinking about that, and that got me to wanting to set up this 3-hour maximum. So this is very important, but this helps in more ways than just the obvious thing with your eyes. This helps your physical health also by allowing you to get to bed and stay asleep. I've noticed that the more time I spend in front of a screen, especially as I get towards the end of the day, if I don't have a long enough unwind period between seeing a screen and then going to sleep, man, I just don't stay asleep. I toss and turn all night long. My brain is too stimulated, and yeah, it's a problem. So it helps with sleep. It helps with your physical health in other ways, like just being able to go outside and get exercise. That's kind of an obvious one, but there's a reason for that. But then there's also the health emotionally that you get from not being constantly at the mercy of instant gratification, which is what a lot of gamers, sorry guys, you know, I got kids and they play tons of games, and everything else in life bores them. Everything. I'm not too far behind. I'm not a gamer, but I know what it's like to have constant bombardment of these electrons that are stimulating every part of my brain, the dopamine, and just, oh yes, I got another web page that gave me an awesome image and another awesome idea that I can chase down into this little hole, this rat's hole of distraction that I eventually get nothing done. So it helps with my emotional health to stay away from screens, because now I can enjoy the simpler things in life a little bit more. And by now, I'm not saying I'm already there. This has been a battle for a long time. Now, this is the first time I've actually set in place a limit on my screen consumption. So emotional helps me appreciate things, and relational health too. Because when I spend less time in front of the screen, I'm spending more time making a phone call. I'm spending more time sitting down with somebody, drinking a coffee with them, maybe at a Panera. I'm spending more time with my wife and kids playing games, like not video games, sitting down. Remember those things called board games that they make us bored these days, right? Because there's no electrons involved, but they're actually not too bad. They can be kind of fun. So relational health becomes a little bit better, because now I get to spend time critiquing my daughter's art and having her critique mine. So in the interest of authenticity, which I said was important to me, I'm going to admit that I just switched the face of the camera to look at me so I can see the screen, because I ran out of storage space after 6 minutes and the thing died. So I lost about 15 minutes of video footage. Annoying. I got to find out how to be certain that the phone is recording without having to look at the screen. So for the moment, I'm just going to look away from the screen at a little camera hole, which is not part of the screen, so maybe this counts. But I just finished talking about how this benefits also your relational health, because you get to hang out with more people when you're spending less time in front of a screen. And now I got a list of examples that I want to give you. The very first one, paper versus G-tasks. Now, I love G-tasks. I've used G-tasks since as long as I think they've been around. It's just very addicting to have your phone with all the G-tasks and just checkbox, I've done this, I'm getting my things done. This feels good. I can move them to the done column, move them to the done list. And every year, I would go through tons of lists this way. And at the end of the year, when I'm doing my taxes, I would print up all of my G-tasks, just in case I wanted to refer to them again, and I'd file them. Why? Just an exercise in futility there. I don't think I've ever gone back to my files to review a past year's G-tasks. So why not save the middleman and just write your to-do lists on a piece of paper, like this guy? There's nothing wrong with doing stuff on an app on the phone to do your to-do list. It's just that if I'm going to go ahead and file these things on paper anyways, let me save some time. And this also helps me stay away from the screen. I get to doodle more. And back to the idea of the creativity from yesterday. I have always felt more creative when I've got a pen in my hand or a pencil and I'm just writing chicken scratchings on a piece of paper. This example over here, when I was creating my website or updating it the other day, I drew this silly thing. I'm not the best artist. It's just, the point is, it helps me identify where I want to have which pieces of the website, which elements look complementary to others. So writing things down allows me to stay away from the screen and allows me to be more creative, because I don't feel the limitations of my to-do list, where I'm hunting and pecking and typing and trying to make sure I get things correct, and the autocorrect is auto-incorrecting me, and then I'm erasing stuff. More screen time for no reason. So I've chosen to use paper to do my to-do lists. I'm going to see how far I can go with this. I'd like to totally ditch G-tasks if I can, especially if it saves me tons of screen time. Example number 2, paper again versus web dev. Now, I'm not a web developer. I've developed a lot of websites, web applications, mobile applications, simulations, educational applications, all kinds of software for like the last 22 years. This does not excite me. Okay, I like writing software that elevates my creativity and that gives me the opportunity to collaborate on an artistic level with people that I enjoy being with. However, that being said, as I've gotten older, the creativity aspect of software development has become commoditized in my experience, and more often than not, what I have been spending my time on throughout every single year with software is fixing more bugs, resolving the same problem that I solved last year because somebody decided to change their legal terms or they decided to change their standards. We all have a standard. We're in this huge world of unique standards. Am I using that word correctly anymore? Please, someone help me. I don't know if I know how to define standard because there's so many standards. And you know what? When I was younger, I enjoyed software. There's no knock against software. It is a creative endeavor. And maybe when you're younger, you feel like you can do anything. You can challenge yourself. You can learn new things. It's really exciting to see how all these different technologies work together and fit. But as you get older, at least so far in this industry, it's less about the creativity and it's more about keeping up with all these disruptive changes that are disrespecting the previous changes. And hopefully that'll change because I think it's unnecessary. I'm sidetracking a little bit, but that's why I say paper versus web dev. What do I mean by that? Similar to the G-Tasks comment. When I have to update my websites, I've got a couple of them that I need to update from time to time. I've got my Remnant Records website, which is my artistic alter ego. And then I've got my ReneRafael.com, which is my keynote speaker website. And I have to make modifications every so often. I use WordPress, and as wonderful as that tool is, it still has a lot of buttons, links, and distraction that could potentially get you off course if you don't know what not to pay attention to. Even if you do know what not to pay attention to, you have to force yourself to ignore things because they're going to keep calling at you and asking for your attention. And so, like every other distracting website out there, what I am choosing to do is instead of hopping into WordPress and moving things around and seeing what looks good, yesterday I chose to use paper and write down the things that I needed to actually get updated on my website. This does not necessarily have to mean anything to you. If it does, that would scare me. This doesn't make much sense to me anymore today. It made sense to me yesterday, though. And the point behind this is I sat down and I wrote down in advance the things that I needed to change on my website, as well as the order, the most efficient order to achieve these. So, for example, I had to change a label on an image. Big whoop. But then I also had to make a copy of that changed label and that changed image to a different location. So rather than having two steps where I make a copy and then I change a label 2 times, both in the original and in the copied source, or copied destination, I made sure to recognize that there's a relationship there. So let me go ahead and change the label first, then copy second, so I can save myself an extra step. And so this is what I did throughout the entire thing. Some of it was involving JavaScript and code and whatnot, but I made sure to tease them out in the order in which they made sense. For instance, another example, some of these things had to take place on my laptop. I have things on my laptop that I don't have on my desktop. And some of these things had to happen on my desktop. But the things that happened on my desktop could only happen after the things on my laptop were done. So I made sure to put those in that order as well. Do these things on the desktop towards the end. So that's the other example of getting away from screens. If you have to do anything, it doesn't even have to be web development. If you have to go online to research anything, don't sit down and pretend, unless you're super somehow focused, don't pretend the web is your friend and that it's going to help you get things done. You'll get things done, just a lot of things you weren't planning on getting done, and you will feel depleted at the end of the day. So if you have to go online, Connect to it just briefly after having planned what your plan of attack is. Kind of like the Matrix, right? When these guys would go in and they beat up the bad guys, they wouldn't just hop in there and see what happens. They download all the plans to their brains first, right? They got to learn how to fight. They got to learn how to use these weapons. They have to know ninjutsu. They have to know all these different locations and how to hop on a helicopter and where the helicopter is going to be. Whatever. Flight school. They had to learn how to fly the helicopter. They downloaded the pieces of information they needed first, and they got into the Matrix. The web is the Matrix, folks. Trust me, it really is. Don't lose time there. You don't die online necessarily, but you do die over time. That kind of rhymes. You don't die online, but you die over time. All right, so moving on. Example number 3. Make a phone call instead of research. So I have a friend, Stan, who is like the big data, the human face on big data. He is so good at efficiently, I should say, researching and tackling a problem, breaking it down into the best way to look into it. And I needed to know from him how to go about researching the top 10 schools in the area that would be most interested in the kinds of things that I talk about. I could have spent time online looking into this myself. And, quite frankly, I did. But before doing so, I made a phone call. I talked to Stan. Stan told me this is the way he would do it. And I followed suit. And that really saved me a lot of time. Not only did it save me time in front of the screen, but it gave me an opportunity to catch up with Stan. And the name of the game is to build your health that the screens take away from you. And one of these is the relational health. So I got some time improving my relationship with Stan. Example number 4. We got 2 more here. Lunch versus research. I won't dive into that one too much. Just the example from yesterday, talking to Mike over lunch. I could have looked up things online again, and I decided instead to ask him in person. And this last example is the most frustrating because I still get stuck in this so many times. But call people instead of texting. The screen on your phone is the worst offender when it comes to sucking your eyeballs away from the real world. I don't know how many times I've sent an innocent text message to begin with. Hey, do you know where I could find a electric lawnmower that I could borrow from you or a friend? Who is this? John doesn't remember who I am. Dude, this is Rene. You remember we used to hang out when we were in school together. Oh, John says, sorry, I got a new phone. I haven't updated my contacts. This kind of garbage conversation goes back and forth over and over again. By an hour from now, I'm not any closer to finding this lawnmower. I'm really frustrated, and John is just now learning who I am. How about instead I call a guy? I get to reconnect with John, improve my relational health, don't hurt my fingers hunting and pecking and flicking all these notifications away that keep asking for my attention. Call, don't text. This is me getting frustrated with me. This is me scolding me. If you do this, maybe you should try not to as well, but that's up to you. All right, so here are some tips on how you can achieve this 3-hour limit per day on screens. Set yourself a timer. I do that. I did that yesterday. It was difficult. I had to go an hour extra, but every time I was doing something, I had to hit that timer. It's on my phone, and yes, it's a screen, but the timer on the phone helps me remember that the phone is a screen and a source that I need to also log. So every time I was going to use the phone or use a desktop or watch TV, I'm hitting the timer. Use podcasts. That's another tip. Your eyes are not the best source of discerning useful information, especially in the world of screens that we live in today. They have become very undiscerning as to what's important to pay attention to. We like everything. It's just crack. Screen is crack. So use podcasts. Let your ears get retrained and let them decipher for you. You'll be surprised how much you learn more by listening than by looking. Another thing about podcasts is that they help you get up. You can go ahead and do not multitasking, but the multiplying I was talking about. Go hiking, get some exercise, learn something while you're listening to a podcast. dim all your screens. This will help you just when you have to be in front of a screen. You may squint a little bit more, as I did, but maybe you get used to it. I don't know if this is actually good advice. Maybe this makes you squint more, but I'm going to try it and see what happens. Flip the camera if you're recording, so you're not looking at yourself. Yeah, this was a really good advice that I gave until this thing didn't work a second ago and I'm re-recording. So, but then this is the last piece. Pause the timer every time you walk away. Force yourself to walk away for a lot of things. What would you walk away for? Bathrooms, eating something, talking to somebody. Anytime you're having your computer do something that you don't have to be around for. Automation. For example, when my computer is churning video and exporting stuff, I don't have to sit there for the next 15 minutes pretending to do something online while I wait for the export to finish. No, walk away. Get yourself a little exercise. Play your guitar. Uploads, downloads, transfers. Anytime you're transferring big files anywhere, why sit down and pretend that you're doing extra work while you're really just waiting for this thing to finish? Get the heck up. Backups included. And what would you do? Play guitar. Like I said, get up and talk to somebody. Greet your really annoying kids when they get back home from school. Just get up. All right. I've enjoyed yelling at the screen today. Not you. Really. Remember, I'm angry, not with you, not with me. Well, a little with me, but mostly with the screen. I don't want to be tethered. So now I go hike again.